All right, picture this for a second. It's July 30th, 1930. We're in Montevideo, Uruguay. The air is surprisingly freezing. It's the dead of winter in the southern hemisphere, but honestly, the chill in the air is completely overpowered by the absolutely deafening roar of tens of thousands of people. You're standing inside the newly built Estadio Centenario, and history is literally about to be made. Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're looking at the absolute raw, unpolished, and intensely passionate origins of the biggest sporting event on Earth, the very first FIFA World Cup final.
Okay, let's dive right into this because the demands made by the Belgian referee John Langenus tell you exactly what kind of game we're dealing with here. I mean, this wasn't a corporate, highly sanitized modern football match. Langenus, who famously refereed wearing a full suit and tie, by the way, received actual death threats before the game even started. The tension between the two competing nations was so terrifyingly high that he demanded a life insurance policy, and get this, he requested a boat be kept waiting at the port with its engine running just in case a riot broke out and he needed to flee for his life right after blowing the final whistle. No way, right?
And who was he refereeing in front of? Well, look at this staggering number. 93,000. That was the official attendance packed into the Estadio Centenario. The appetite for this final was so ravenous that the stadium gates had to be thrown open at 8 a.m. 6 full hours before kickoff, the stands were already completely filled to the brim. Just an overwhelming sea of humanity.
Just imagine stepping out onto the pitch as a player or a referee and seeing this. A solid ring of armed guards surrounding the field. Police with rifles and fixed bayonets. Supporters were searched for weapons at the gate, sure, but that didn't stop the continuous sharp cracks echoing through the stadium all match long. Langenus actually noted later that these sharp cracks sounded exactly like revolvers being fired, though he tried to reassure himself they were just firecrackers. It's a stunning contrast to the highly polished, meticulously controlled modern game we see today.
Part 1. The fiercest football rivalry. Uruguay versus Argentina.
So you might be wondering, why were the stakes literally life and death? Why on earth did the referee need an escape boat? Well, to understand the chaos, we really have to understand the geopolitical and sporting tension of the River Plate derby. And look at how these two South American titans stacked up. On one side, you have the hosts, Uruguay, the undisputed kings of the era. They won gold at both the 1924 and 1928 Summer Olympics. On the other side, their closest neighbors, Argentina, the reigning 1929 South American champions. And crucially, Argentina was the team that Uruguay narrowly beat 2-1 in a bitter replay to win that 1928 Olympic gold. So this 1930 World Cup final, it was the ultimate grudge match. It wasn't just about a trophy. It was a profound battle for national identity and total footballing dominance across the Rio de la Plata.
That intense regional pride brings us to this terrifying war cry chanted by the visiting fans. Victoria o muerte. Victory or death. An estimated 10 to 15,000 Argentinian fans attempted the crossing over the river from Buenos Aires to Montevideo. But the 10 boats earmarked for the fans proved wildly inadequate. It turned into a massive, chaotic scramble of assorted crafts overwhelming the local port. And honestly, many fans didn't even make landfall before the game began. The atmosphere was a total powder keg.
Part 2. Chaos before kickoff, a tale of two balls.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer absurdity of the situation. That powder keg almost detonated before a single ball was kicked, literally over the ball itself. The two teams walked onto the pitch, looked at the referee, and vehemently disagreed on which football to use. Both teams had brought their own ball and demanded an advantage. The tension was palpable. So to stop the final from being derailed right then and there, FIFA and referee Langenus intervened with a wild compromise. They tossed a coin. Argentina won the toss, so their lighter Tiento ball would be used for the first half, and Uruguay's heavier, English-style T-model ball with laces would be used for the second half.
Part 3. The match flow. A game of two halves.
With the ball debate finally settled, the first ever World Cup final kicked off, and what followed was a tense end-to-end sports thriller that quite literally became a game of two halves. In the first half, the hosts struck first. Right at the 12-minute mark, Uruguay's Pablo Dorado fired a low shot right through the legs of the Argentine goalkeeper. 1-0. But Argentina, using their preferred ball, responded with superior passing. Just 8 minutes later, Carlos Pucel equalized. Then, in the 37th minute, the tournament's top scorer, Guillermo Stabile, gave Argentina a 2-1 lead. But this goal sparked absolute fury. Uruguay's captain, Jose Nazasi, fiercely protested to the referee, swearing up and down that Stabile was offside. But Langenus wouldn't change his mind. The goal stood, and Argentina went into halftime leading 2-1. And this brilliantly illustrates the turning point of the match. Halftime arrives, and as agreed, they swap the match ball. Out goes the lighter Argentini Tiento, and in comes Uruguay's heavier T-model ball.
Let's move forward and see how this builds. Playing with their own ball, the hosts took total control of the tempo. In the 57th minute, Pedro Sayas scored an equalizer. The massive home crowd was electric. 10 minutes later, Santos Iriarte unleashed a cracking strike from outside the penalty area to take a 3-2 lead. The stadium completely exploded. And then, right before the final whistle in the 89th minute, a legendary final blow was struck to make it 4-2.
Part 4. The One-Armed Hero, Hector Castro.
I absolutely have to talk about the man who scored that 89th minute final blow. Because his story is, actually, scratch that, it's not just a great piece of World Cup history, it's one of the most incredible sports stories ever. Hector Castro was an Uruguayan forward who was missing his right forearm due to an accident with an electric saw when he was just a teenager. Despite this severe physical challenge, he pushed through to become a national footballing icon. He scored Uruguay's very first goal of the tournament, and here in the final, he rose up in the dying seconds of the match to head home the cross that sealed the 4-2 victory. He became a legendary underdog hero, permanently etching his name into the history books.
Part 5. Birth of a Phenomenon, the Aftermath.
Longinus blew the whistle. Uruguay had done it. They were the first ever World Cup champions. FIFA President Jules Rimet presented the very first Goddess of Victory trophy to the Uruguayan Football Association right there on the pitch. But while there was jubilation for the victors, the aftermath across the region was absolute chaos. So the crucial point is how intensely both of these nations reacted to the final result. In Uruguay, the government immediately declared the following day a national holiday. The streets of Montevideo were flooded with dancing and celebration that lasted for days. But across the river in Buenos Aires, the heartbreak turned to genuine rage. Disappointed Argentine fans rioted, an angry mob actually threw stones at the Uruguayan consulate. The bitterness of this defeat was so profound that Argentina broke off football relations with Uruguay entirely for a period.
It's honestly amazing to think about how long ago this raw, intense piece of history actually was. It almost feels like a different universe. But it is beautifully connected to our modern era through one incredible figure. Francisco Varallo, an Argentine striker who played in this very final, lived for over 8 decades after the match. He was the last surviving player from this historic game, eventually passing away in 2010 at the incredible age of 100. Through him, the memory of that unbelievable winter day in Montevideo lived on well into the 21st century.
Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought. Today, the World Cup is a meticulously planned, multi-billion-dollar global spectacle, right? But as we've explored today, its birth was messy, it was dangerous, and it was overwhelmingly passionate. Players arguing over 2 different soccer balls, a referee demanding a getaway boot, fans chanting victory or death. It really begs the question, would the World Cup have ever captured the imagination of the entire planet if it hadn't started with this exact kind of raw, chaotic passion? Those amateur players kicking a heavy leather ball around in 1930 had absolutely no idea they were birthing a global phenomenon, but they did. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this deep dive gave you a whole new appreciation for the beautiful game's wildest origins.